You are listening to the Purdue Report with Jake Dunn every Wednesday on the Central Indiana Sports Report. Welcome back, Purdue fans, to the Central Indiana Sports Report for this week's Purdue Report with Jake Dunn. Jake, welcome back to another Purdue Report. And as we talked about on my new podcast, Greg and his friends talk sports, on Sunday, Purdue ended their three-game losing streak with a 30-point win at Maryland. A not good Maryland team, so it didn't tell us much, but better to win than lose. I just want to go back real fast to the beginning of the season. I had Purdue at 22-0 at this point. Just want to remind everybody of that. Clearly, we're not going to get that type of team, as I thought we might be an all-timer. But clearly a national contender still, Purdue. But I want to examine the question, to what level? Are they still a Big Ten contender? Are they a Final Four national championship contender? Are they even the best team in the Big Ten? And those are the questions I want to ask Jake Dunn, and really, more than that, discuss with Jake Dunn. Jake, welcome back, and it was more of a relief than anything Sunday, wasn't it?
Really good to see the team have that sort of performance. Reminds me of the Texas Tech game in Purdue is getting just about anything they wanted. Fletcher Lawyer got back in the groove. It was really good to see him going. Braden Smith played really well on both sides of the ball, really. He obviously had a good offensive game, but also had a good defensive game, too, with his effort. And I think that translated to other players on the floor as well. So really good to see that type of performance from the team again. I would expect kind of coming up here this weekend to have a very similar performance against Oregon at home. And then we go into probably the roughest stretch of Purdue's season here over the next 5 games or so.
I'm glad they're going right into the fire here. We need to know, is this team going to be any good or not? We're going to find out when they play Nebraska, Iowa, Michigan, Indiana, Michigan State, all back-to-back, right? I mean, let's go.
It'd be nice to not have a slump, but every team's going to have a little bit of a slump there. And good to have a couple get-right games here against Maryland and Oregon to then prepare to go into the meat of the schedule here. So we're over halfway through the conference season, and here in just 5 weeks or so, we're going to be in conference tournament and March Madness time, and before we know it, college basketball season will be over. So just trying to enjoy it here, and hopefully we can see this Purdue team make it back to Indy for the Final Four.
So, Jake, we haven't checked your confidence meter in a while. Of course, mine at the beginning of the season was at 100. I had no doubt this team was a team of destiny. They're going to win the national championship. Right now, I'd put mine at about 43.9 that they're a national championship level contender. So I've gone way down. I still believe they can be. I believe in Matt Painter. I believe in Braden Smith. I still believe in my heart they're going to be a contender, but Jake, where is your confidence on a scale of 1 to 100?
I'd say probably a 40. So pretty close to where you were at the start of the season. Certainly was a little bit of a higher number. I don't know if I would have been at 100% that they were gonna win, but they're only 2 games behind Michigan and Illinois for the top of the conference. Would have really liked to win that one against Illinois to only be down 1 game, and then you still have Michigan at home, also Michigan State at home too. But Purdue still controls its own destiny. Has to be essentially perfect from here on out, probably, for a chance to contend.
That's about right.
So could they do it? Yes. Will they do it? Odds are probably not. There's still the Big Ten tournament, which Purdue has only won a couple times in Matt Painter's tenure, and obviously the big prize is March. So if the slump here in January allows us to go far in March, I think I'd be okay with that.
Jake, I want to get your opinions on what you've seen from the Big Ten because I've seen a lot more of late. So I have some views to share from what I've seen. I think the issue is there are still 2 or 3 things that they haven't figured out that have kind of been lingering issues that you kind of expected them to figure out. But there's still plenty of season. You kind of trust Matt Painter to figure them out. Offensive rebound, or I always say that defensive rebounding, keeping the other team off the offensive boards, and in particular. And Maryland wasn't good enough to take advantage of it, but the wide open 3-point shooting, part of it against UCLA and USC and Penn State and Iowa and all those teams getting hot, was that they just had guys who had good games. But part of it is they're getting some pretty open looks. How concerning is the perimeter defense for you at this point?
I think we saw a little bit of an improvement here from Maryland. I think we saw in that game that
we still saw an awful lot of wide open shots for Maryland. They just couldn't make them.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that I thought we saw a little bit of an improvement on from a defensive standpoint for Purdue, not switching everything like they had been doing. Still a little bit of a concern for me, certainly, especially as we get into March where it's a win or go home, so stakes are way higher than what they are here in the regular season. So I think still have work to do there. I know that's kind of how Purdue's defense is kind of drawn up schematically is to give up more looks from three than close to the basket, but teams tend to get hot in March, and if you're giving up a lot of threes and not making your shots and turning the ball over, then that's it can turn out to be a pretty bad recipe in the tournament, as we've seen historically here from Purdue sometimes. So still a little bit of concern for me, but I think certainly still a Sweet 16, if not an Elite 8 team, especially if they can keep playing like they did here against Maryland.
As pessimistic as I am compared to the beginning of the season, I still do believe if you gave me one team, I would take Purdue. I still think that. I just think there are a lot of really good teams, and I have no idea which one is the best.
Michigan certainly looked really good. Arizona's looked really good. Duke has looked really solid too. So there's a lot of Illinois here might be the hottest team in the country as of right now. So
Kansas and North Carolina suddenly are playing pretty well, and Texas Tech is suddenly playing pretty well again. And let's not discount this Nebraska team. They've been shorthanded this week. They've lost twice, but they're really good, man.
Mm-hmm. That's a game that at the start of the season we kind of called out a little bit as a game that Purdue it's usually a fairly tough place to play. Purdue hasn't should clarify there. I called that out as a kind of a tough game. And
mine was Oregon. Yours was Nebraska. That tells you what I know.
Been kind of high on Nebraska all season, and like I said, they've been shorthanded here and dropped a couple, but still certainly one of the best teams in the Big Ten and one of the best teams in the country, and going to be a tough one. So hopefully this is where your expertise and experience as a senior comes in. How you have 4 out of the starting 5 are seniors here for Purdue, so you hope in a game, an environment like that's one that you can come out with a win.
Matt Painter's the best at making adjustments. I don't think there's any coach in the country that's better at making in-season adjustments than he is. There's one that's glaring, and it's out there, and it's been talked about. I don't think we've discussed it very much, and that's that maybe Oscar Clough and Trey Kaufman-Renn don't belong next to each other. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's a little bit easier to look at TKR next to a true big man when the true big man is Zach Edey, and there's a little bit more game to complement him there. We never really saw Trey Kaufman-Renn develop a 3-point shot. If that would have materialized, I think could probably be a little bit better of a fit next to Oscar Clough. But we saw in the IU game late when Purdue kind of went to TKR at the 5. They played better Oscar Clough
Both
is
it.
still a very good player. He's
Oh,
a lot of good things here for Purdue, but he does a little bit of a liability on the defensive end, at least on the perimeter, where TKR is a little more switchable onto some of these guards. Down the stretch, Oscar Clough brings a lot to the table from a rebounding perspective. That's hard to replicate, I think, from an offensive standpoint. Sometimes you are going to need TKR out there at the 5. You're not having an easy time scoring the ball. You're going to need your best players out there, TKR at the 5. And I think people have been pretty impressed with Jack Benner at the 4. So
yes.
he brings a lot of good things to the table, and excited to see how his career progresses here under Matt Painter.
No question. More Benter minutes, more Meyer minutes. That's what I think. And Jake looked really good on Sunday as well.
I know we only get Oscar Clough for 1 year, but I'm excited for Daniel Jacobson and some of the other kind of prospects that Purdue's bringing in through the high school recruiting ranks. Obviously, we haven't talked about him much because he's redshirting, but Raleigh Burgess, I think this redshirt season, if it's anything like TKR's redshirt season, going to be a good thing for him. People who do redshirt under Matt Payne are typically to be better off for it. So I think he can be a factor either at the 4 or the 5 next year. So yeah, excited. Although going to be losing kind of your 3 star players, you still have some good pieces on the roster and some good pieces coming in where you can still be a top 25 team.
Jake, I promise this is not related. It just made me think of it. I'm not piling on Oscar Clough here. But I caught Will Berg the other day, and he's playing awfully well at Wichita State.
He was a guy that I thought would have put it together a little bit more than he did at Purdue, especially with Purdue's coaching staff. I don't know if it's the decreased level of competition or what that's kind of allowing him to play really well, but he moves really well for his size. He did do some good things at Purdue and showed some flashes sometimes, but never could really just kind of put it all together. So happy for the kid. I think from all accounts he's a pretty good kid and seemed to be pretty well liked in the program, and glad he's doing well at Wichita State.
Last 2 games, 6 for 8, 16 points, 6 rebounds in a loss against a good Tulsa team. And the game before that, 15-point win over Memphis, 10 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. So, been playing really well of late for Wichita State. All right, Jake, going to take a quick break here. When we come back, let's talk about the Big Ten and how you think it stacks up at this point. All right, welcome back, Jake. Through most teams having played 11 Big Ten games, Michigan and Illinois tied atop the standings at 10-1. Michigan ranked 2nd, Illinois ranked 5th, 9th ranked Nebraska, 10th ranked Michigan State are both 9-2. Number 12 Purdue and Wisconsin are 8-3. UCLA is 8-4. IU trying to get to 7-5 as we speak, playing out at USC. And maybe you could include any team I didn't mention there, but Jake, your thoughts on the elite teams in the Big Ten and maybe who's a little better and who's not as good as you thought coming into the season?
I think we talked about it towards the beginning of the season that I thought and still kind of partially think Michigan State is a little overrated. They haven't really played anybody, at least in the conference yet. They played Nebraska. Nebraska ended up losing by 2, but until they played Michigan, they have not played a ranked team at all in the conference. They played Duke in non-conference, lost by 6, and then beat North Carolina by almost 20. Also played Kentucky and Arkansas, but I still don't think that they are as good as kind of what they're ranked. Jeremy Fears is a really good player. He's obviously kind of the star on offense, but I still think that once they play a team like Michigan, or once they come to Mackey Arena and play Michigan again, I think those are games that they'll ultimately drop. So I
I
know
agree.
I know they're ahead of Purdue right now in the standings, but I think that'll drop, and I think they've had a pretty easy schedule in the conference anyway.
So you think
Um,
it's 4 teams for the Big Ten?
yeah, I'd say Michigan, Illinois, Nebraska, and Purdue. So I think UCLA just has, they're kind of in their own head. I think Mick Cronin's kind of in his own head. Iowa has proved not, they're okay. They'll probably make the tournament, but they're not. They haven't proved to be anything special. Wisconsin, I think they're fairly pedestrian as well. IU
There's a
is
It's as big a separation at the top and from the middle of the Big Ten I've ever seen.
it's pretty top heavy, and to your point, I can't really remember another time where it was like this.
Wisconsin, UCLA, Iowa, Indiana are all pretty good teams, not near the level of the other 5.
Then you get kind of down to the bottom, I guess, third of the conference, and you just kind of got a big, big heap of crap. Honestly,
Really so
it's
bad, Jake.
Washington, Minnesota, Northwestern, Rutgers, Maryland, Penn State, and Oregon.
I don't know if
Those
I'd put Washington in that group or not, probably, but the others and again, Oregon was my team that I thought maybe keep an eye on. They had a good inside out game last year. Both guys were back, but the rest of that team's horrible. And of course, they had some injury luck. So most disappointing is definitely Oregon, but
Mhm.
man, Maryland is so bad, Jake.
Yeah. So obviously, like we talked about, it's good to see Purdue win by 30, especially on the road. But that's just not a very good Maryland team, and I know
I think they're the
they've
worst team in the Big Ten. I think they're like worse than Penn State and Oregon, even though they beat Penn State.
and again they've played a couple of teams close in the conference, but it's just not, it's they're just pretty bad. There's not really any way around that. Buzz Williams, I wouldn't be surprised if he left Maryland after this year. I know he just got there. It doesn't really seem like a good fit for him, and they're really bad. There's just no way to go around that.
I think there's a chance Northwestern's going to be better by the end of the year than those other teams, but I'm not convinced of that. It's possible.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I definitely thought with Nick Martinelli coming back, I thought that they would be certainly a little better than they are. And to your point, they very well could kind of put it all together here towards the end of conference play. They're 2-9 in the Big Ten currently, and just haven't really looked good.
Last 2 questions. Let's start with this one. Who do you think wins the Big Ten? And if you think it's Purdue, who's going to be their top challenger?
I don't think it's Purdue. I think it's going to be Michigan. It's just hard to hard to pick against them, honestly. I know they still have to come to Mackey. Um, they still have to go to Illinois. They still have to play Michigan State, but I mean they just look pretty unstoppable right now.
Jake, here's why I don't think it'll be Michigan and why I think it still might be Nebraska, but I think it's going to be Purdue. Michigan's guards are pretty good, but man, they can be horrible in some matchups or just in some nights, and they're going to lose a game that they're not expected to, maybe 2. They've already done it a couple of times where they lost one and almost lost another. I think that's going to happen again to them. And I also don't think they're going to win the national championship because of that as well. I just don't think those guards, when they're good, Michigan's unbeatable. But on the nights they're not very good, the team just isn't very good, and I don't trust them. It was like that Auburn team a few years ago with Jabari Smith.
Mhm.
You knew when their guards were good, Auburn was the best team in the country, but you knew with those guards they weren't going to win anything. That's how I see Michigan. But man, those guys up front are good, aren't they?
Axel Lindenberg, he's just insane. Him or and I almost call him Carlos, his dad, or Boozer at Duke. I mean, they've just looked very good, and hard to really pick over one of those two for National Player of the Year.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
their
like
front court
Mara a
is.
lot for Michigan too. I like Johnson a lot for Michigan too.
Mhm.
Kenny and Cadeau, their guards are good some days, and when they're not, it's not a very good team. By the way, I like Cheddar too.
Yeah.
I like their entire front line. I would take it in a heartbeat, but their guards just don't trust them, and I trust our guards.
Michigan has a kind of a tough stretch here to close the season. They host UCLA at home on Valentine's Day, and they have to go play at Purdue. Then they play Duke on February 21st. Then they play Minnesota, at Illinois, at Iowa, home against Michigan State. So they've got kind of a tough stretch here. They've got a few kind of bye games, I guess, if you will. Penn, at home against Penn State, at Ohio State, which that's a rivalry game, so I guess that one will be a little more competitive. But if Ohio State doesn't make the tournament, Jake Diebler might be fired, and then they got to go to Northwestern, and that's when their stretch starts there against UCLA and finishes against Michigan. But I think certainly it's if Illinois can keep it up, I think in my eyes that they would be Michigan's kind of contenders there for the Big Ten championship. They do play each other on Friday, February 27th, so they still have to play each other. Nebraska has a fairly kind of easy schedule here to close out. Their toughest games are coming up here against Purdue on Tuesday, February 10th. They travel to Iowa on February 17th. And then they don't really have another hard game until they close out the season at UCLA on March 3rd. And then Senior Day, they host Iowa on March 8th. So between then, they have Penn State, Maryland, and I guess I got to go to USC. So they may drop one of those West Coast games, but kind of a little bit of an easier schedule there for I think all those contenders. I think Nebraska's probably got the easiest schedule.
Yeah, that team's so impressive. They might be the most balanced team in the Big Ten. Purdue probably is, but Nebraska might be second. They're good at every position. They're deep. They do a little bit of everything well. I'm not sure Nebraska is not a top 5 team by the end of the year.
Especially if they can stay healthy and keep winning. I'm a big fan of Fred Hoiberg and what he's been able to do there at Nebraska. And Connor Segan from Indiana, he was on that team and he got hurt. It's they'd probably be even better with him there.
And who is your national championship pick at this point? And if it's Purdue, who's their top competitor?
I think at the very least they'll make the Sweet 16. You're really kind of hard pressed to pick against Arizona. They have yet to lose a game. They frankly don't really look like they're going to lose a game, just the way that they play. So it's hard. Going to be hard.
Well,
to
they're not getting
them.
through the Big 12 unbeaten. That Big 12 is insanely good right now, and I'm not. I think the national championship might come out of that conference, and it might not be them. And man, that conference is good, Jake. It might even be better than the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think
is just kind of flying under the radar.
Yeah, I think the Big 12 is definitely the biggest, or the best conference here so far this season. Looking at Arizona's schedule, they play at Kansas on the 9th. Then they host Texas Tech on the 14th. 4 days later, on the 18th, they host BYU. 3 days later, they play at Houston.
Wow.
Then they travel to Baylor on the 24th, host Kansas on the 28th, host Iowa State on March 2nd, and then they finish the season at Colorado on
Jake,
March 7th.
They can be really good and lose every one of those games.
Yeah. So they got a tough stretch there.
I've never quite seen 11, 13, 16, 8, 11, 7 in a 9-game stretch.
Yeah, that is tough. And I guess it's the first time I've looked at their schedule in a while. They haven't. They played Alabama in the non-conference, and they they blew them out of the water. And they hadn't played another ranked team until they went to BYU last week and beat them by 3. So I guess they've still been playing some solid teams, but just not any ranked teams. And then they got to finish with that brutal stretch. So to your point, I guess now seeing that they're probably gonna lose. I would think at least 2 of those games, but it's a Big 12's a tough conference, but they've just looked really good. So they're still my pick to win the national championship, even though they do have that tough stretch there.
By the way, if you haven't seen Kansas and BYU, they have a couple of special players on those teams. So
hopefully a future Pacer on one of those teams, but
or Cameron Boozer.
Yeah.
Oh man. Or Caleb Wilson at North Carolina.
Yeah.
Ooh, so good. All 4 of those are franchise guys, I believe. All right, Jake. Well, it's been an interesting season, way more interesting than I hoped it would be, but it's been interesting nonetheless. And let's do a confidence scale in Matt Painter. What's your 1 to 100?
In Matt Painter, it's 100. And
I was gonna say 98. It's 90.
So
there's that.
Yeah, definitely have full confidence in him. I wouldn't want anybody else to be the head coach of Purdue. I got a lot of confidence in him and hope that some of this 3-game stretch here really was the kick in the pants that the team needed, and they can finish out the season strong and hopefully peak in March.
Thanks, Jake. Boiler up.
Yeah, thank you. Boiler up.
And everybody, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with a Purdue fan in your life and help us spread the word that the Central Indiana Sports Report is talking about what Central Indiana sports fans are talking about every day, Jake. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. Boiler up.
The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.